Hey everybody, Nate Carter here with today's Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. When I was growing up, my brother and I were complainers. And I think every kid complains, but I have a feeling that we were probably a little worse than most kids. When I was maybe about 14 years old, my brother was 12, my parents took us up to the Boundary Waters up in northern Minnesota. It's this beautiful, serene, untouched land that is outside of any flight paths. It's outside of cell phone range. It's far away from any development whatsoever. This protected land, and what you do is you canoe from island to island along these beautiful lakes. And it's pine woods, and you're just there with nature, and everything is a leave no trace. So as you get to each campground, the only evidence that anyone had ever been there before you is just the remnants of a fire pit. And other than that, it's like you're seeing nature at its purest. And it's just a beautiful vacation plan for us. My brother and I complained bitterly because it meant taking time away from the cabin. We have a family cabin in northern Minnesota, and this would mean that we'd have to take about 5 days away from our family vacation at the cabin in order to go up to the Boundary Waters. And we complained and complained and complained. We complained before we went, and we complained while we drove there, and we complained while we were there. And God bless my parents. My dad is an unnaturally patient person, and I'm not sure why I didn't catch that gene from him, but he just put up with our complaining because he knew that he was creating for us an experience and a memory that we'll never forget. And of course, I've never forgotten it to this day. In Numbers chapter 11, we get to a turning point in the story of the Israelites and their escape from Egypt. And it begins with verse 1. Soon the people began to complain about their hardship, and the Lord heard everything they said. The complaint is the turning point. Suddenly they begin to forget how God has provided for them. God's provided manna from heaven, this miraculous bread from heaven every day for 2 years. And then water in the desert, often miraculously. And they want for nothing, and yet they complain. It's interesting, down in verse 4, it says that the foreign rabble who were traveling with the Israelites began to crave the good things of Egypt. And the people of Israel also began to complain. "Oh, for some meat," they exclaimed. I had never noticed that it was the foreigners among them that began the complaining. Not the Israelites themselves, but there were some tag-alongs from Egypt. They're the ones that incited the complaining. And if you go further, they talk about all the things that they had when they were in the land of Egypt, all the good things they had to eat. Of course, the Israelites were prisoners there. They were captives. They weren't eating good things. They were buying into this story that the Egyptians among them were saying, even though it was far worse than the experience they were having in the desert because they were free, and far, far worse than the promised land that awaited them ahead. God, like my dad planning this wonderful vacation for us, had wonderful things in mind for the people, and yet they failed to realize not only what was before them, but what God was providing day by day. And God's anger burns against them, and rightfully so. My prayer today, after reading this scripture, is that God would open my eyes to his provision for today. Our prayer in the Lord's Prayer is, "Give us this day our daily bread," and he does. And that's my prayer for you too as well, that we would not complain, but that we would see how, in whatever today brings, how God is providing enough for us. So may your eyes be open to the way that God is providing for you today. Don't be complainers, be people of gratitude. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time on the Cornerstone Connection.